Hey guys, it's Ronen. In this video, I'm going to talk about the small wheel holder. So this tool allows me to use small contact wheels, which I generally use in profiling some of the smaller features on a knife. So for example, in this knife, I have a finger groove here, and the radius is about half an inch. And if I was to try to use my 4-inch contact wheel to profile it, you can tell I wouldn't be able to get in there. The radius is too large. So the knife making industry actually sells small contact wheels that can get into that finger groove, and they've converged on this form factor. What we have is the contact wheel sandwiched in between two bearings, and you notice there's no toolbar attached to attach this wheel to the grinder. Instead, we have a single toolbar with this holder, and you can actually pop out individual contact wheels and just snap them into place. And that way you can switch from, for example, this is a half-inch wheel to a 1-inch wheel without needing a separate toolbar for each wheel. Now, this seems pretty awesome, and you might be asking yourself, why don't we use the same holder for larger wheels, like a 4-inch or an 8-inch wheel? So we'd run into a few problems if we tried to do that. The biggest issue is that this setup is a little bit less rigid and strong. Here we have a half-inch diameter axle attached directly to this solid steel toolbar, and it's just strong and rigid. Now, with smaller wheels, you actually end up putting lower total force onto the wheel with your workpiece as you're cutting. And so a slightly less rigid setup works just fine for these small wheels, but it wouldn't be strong enough for the larger wheels. The larger wheels are also heavier, so that exacerbates the problem. And lastly, the way this thing's constructed is we actually have a cross piece between these two aluminum plates, and the larger the diameter of the wheel, the further back this cross piece would have to sit, and at some point these two plates wouldn't have enough support near the front of the tool to stay rigid. So we only use it with small contact wheels. Now, let me show you how to swap a wheel. You detension the belt. The wheel slides right out. I'm going to switch my half-inch wheel with a 1-inch diameter wheel. Snaps into place. I actually have a couple of magnets that just keep the wheel from falling out while I'm replacing the belt, or if I was to remove the tool arm right now, my contact wheel wouldn't fall on the floor. And I put the belt back on. And in this case, I've actually installed the belt incorrectly so that I can show off one of the features of this tool. So right now, the belt comes from the tension wheel down to the contact wheel and back straight to the drive wheel. And this creates a large angle between these two flat sections of belt. It's about 40 degrees. And if I was to try to use it to cut a deep, long groove, finger groove into a knife, these flat sections of belt would actually get in the way because they'd end up cutting a triangle rather than a nice thin channel. So I've designed these guide wheels, and to correctly install the belt, you need to thread it in between the two guide wheels. And that forces the belt into a much tighter angle near the end. It wraps around the wheel nearly 180 degrees, so it's much more useful this way. Now, as I mentioned, I usually use this for profiling, and I like to profile in the horizontal grinder setup. I just have it set up vertically so that the camera can see the guide wheels and the general belt setup. So let me switch over to my horizontal setup. So to switch into my profiling setup, I flip the grinder over horizontally, and then I use my profiling table. I slide it into place, and I tighten it down. Now, this table might look familiar. It's actually the same one I use for my larger contact wheels for profiling. It's just that I use the other side of the table. So I have a scallop cut out of each side. And this is a large 8-inch diameter scallop, and then I have a smaller one for my small contact wheels. And it just helps keep the table close to the contact wheel, so I'm profiling the workpiece. It really stays on the table. Now you'll notice that I have the same system of linkages here as before. So that allows me to adjust the angle of the table relative to the axis of the contact wheel. So for example, I can adjust the course angle of the table by sliding this linkage up and down. And you can see, let's shift it side to side. Here is, we can cut at a angle like so. And then if I want to adjust the fine angle of the table, I can also do that with this turnbuckle by rotating. You can see it, it's actually adjusting the angle of the table. I can tighten it down, and then if I want to bring the table a little closer, there we are. So that's the small wheel setup. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you check out my other videos. And until next time, this is Ronen with the Juggernaut.